VOWR800.
Hello and welcome to Going Strong. I'm your host, Deborah Collins, and each week I chat with someone who makes our culture the strong and vibrant force it is. And today's guest has been making an extraordinary contribution for nearly 5 decades. A singer, songwriter, composer, and producer, a musician who makes the piano, guitar, mandolin, and tin whistle a reflection of our rugged island home. The Boston Globe once described her music as wild, ancient, and beautiful. A description firmly established during nearly 20 years as the lead singer in Newfoundland's premier folk rock band, Figgy Duff. Her music is featured on more than a dozen albums, half of them under her own independent label, Amber Music. In recent years, she's turned her attention to writing folk opera and musical theatre. And her most recent work, called The White Fleet Suite, is about to take the stage in St. John's. Phew! Talk about going strong. Hello, Pamela Morgan.
Hello, Deborah. Great to see you again.
It's so good to see you again. Now, that's quite a body of work, and those are just the highlights. But I guess music is not something you ever really retire from, eh?
No, not even if you could. But, you take the odd break here and there, but generally speaking, that's what I do. I don't really know how to do anything else.
And we're going to talk about your musical contribution over the years, but I'd like to start with your newest work, the musical celebration of a historic connection between Portugal and Newfoundland, forged over centuries of fishing cod when the Portuguese sailors were a familiar sight in St. John's and our musical styles found their way into each other's cultures. Do you remember seeing the Portuguese sailors?
I do. It was when I first came to St. John's, I couldn't believe it. I was absolutely flabbergasted because I was in landlocked Grand Falls. That's where I grew up. And everything seemed so exotic. And then, of course, when I joined Figgy Duff, Art Stoyles, who was an accordion player at the time, he knew more Portuguese tunes than he knew Newfoundland ones because he grew up on the waterfront and learned his craft from the Portuguese. So it kind of piqued my interest early on in my life, and I never really lost it.
Yeah. And his version of the Portuguese waltzes is stunning, stunning. As a little girl, I remember seeing those white ships, and the sailors playing soccer on the waterfront and walking in groups along Water Street and the strong smell of their European cigarettes wafting behind them. And it's those sights and sounds and plus some songs and stories that form the basis of this musical, eh? You call it an exotic and passionate time. Tell me what you mean by that.
It kind of was, It was, the sailors were out at sea for months at a time, and the Newfoundland women were happy to see these swarthy, gorgeous men come ashore. And there were also, we shared that handlining cod in the North Atlantic. The Newfoundlanders did that too for centuries, and so did the Portuguese. So we shared a lot, and we shared a culture that was shaped by the ocean. So there's an awful lot in common, and I set about to try to find these commonalities and bring them together, like, the themes of songs and some of the poetry. Agnes Walsh wrote some poetry for it. And so it's just kind of like a celebration of their presence and their legacy in St. John's.
Yeah, and quite a legacy. And they also gifted the Basilica with that statue. There's actually film footage of the Portuguese sailors carrying the statue to the Basilica.
Yes, we have that. We're going to use that in the show.
Really?
Because the song, the Ave Maria song that they were singing is in the suite. This is a little story, but I was in Portugal doing my research, and I was sitting out on the deck one day, and the church bells started playing the very melody. It was just such a magical moment. But it's a well-known religious song in Portugal. But yeah, it's in the suite. And there's footage as well. There's a lot of visuals because such strong visuals came from that time as well.
That's right, and really enhances the show, obviously.
So.
And was there a lot of musical collaboration then between the Portuguese and the local musicians back in the 40s, 50s, 60s?
I would guess yes, but I wasn't there. But I mean, if Art is any example, Art knew all kinds of, not just the Portuguese waltzes. When I was in Portugal doing my research, and my friend Teofilo would take me to places in the villages and there'd be a bunch of accordion players around, I recognize a lot of those tunes because Art used to play them. Mm-hmm. So there had to be an exchange of music.
Yeah. Yeah. And you collaborated, as you just mentioned, with Portuguese musicians for this show. Some of them will appear in the show. What were you trying to capture musically? I mean, were there similarities between the two forms of music? Or
There are. There's a lot of thematic similarities, and there are also, like, in the dance music and in the, like, our cultures are both shaped by the sea, as I mentioned. And so there's something that brings to our music and our poetry. And part of what I did, because I have a background in traditional music of Newfoundland, I would find corresponding songs in Portugal that had the same theme and kind of put them together, which is actually in the piece that we're going to play. It's one Newfoundland folk song that has the same kind of message as the Portuguese song I've paired it with.
Marvelous.
Yeah.
Yeah. That sounds so exciting. Well, and of course, the Whitefleet Suite is on stage at the Arts and Culture Centre on November 3rd and 4th. Are tickets still available?
Yes. I would like to say they're going fast, but hopefully they'll pick up a bit. Mm-hmm. And it starts at 7:30. So that,
Great time.
Yeah, it's easy. And it's only just one act. There's no intermission. So it's an early show, and I can almost guarantee that you won't be disappointed. It's really exciting.
Well, it certainly reflects a memorable time in our cultural and musical history. And we're going to give our listeners a sneak peek of the music that they'll hear. This piece is called Lover's Faith. I'm thinking it's about the many romances that sprang up between the local girls and the Portuguese fishermen.
Well, it's both of these songs, as I mentioned, one is from Newfoundland and one is from Portugal, but they're both about keeping the faith when everybody says, you're mad, you're foolish to be thinking about your lover because he's a sailor and he's gone off with somebody else, or he's dead, or he's never going to come back. So move on with your life. And both of these women in the song are saying, no, I'm not foolish. I know he's coming back. I can feel it in my bones.
Okay. Lover's Faith. Let's have a listen.
To waste my life upon just one man. They say he's sick, they say he's married, they say he's dead in a foreign land. Well, if he's sick, I will wish him better. And if he's married, I wish him joy. If he's dead, I will wish him heaven, for he once was my sailor boy. Pois tudo em meu redor me diz que estás sempre comigo. No vento que lança areia nos vidros, na água que canta, no fogo mortiço, no calor do leito, nos bancos vazios, dentro do meu peito, estás sempre comigo.
siren singing somewhere on a lonely wind. I can hear the song she whispers calling my name.
And that was a song called Lover's Faith from the brand new musical called White Fleet Suite, written by Pamela Morgan, my guest today on Going Strong. That was wonderful.
Oh, thanks. Now, I put the things together. I can't say I wrote them. The first song in English that I sang was traditional. Second song is Barco Negro, which is a Brazilian song. I can't remember the author's name off the top of my head. And then the last little bit, I don't know if you recognized it, was a snippet from a Ron Hines song, the Lighthouse. And also, the musical director for this show is Dwayne Andrews, and he brings a kind of special magic to everything. And the singer you heard, the female, was Aurea Gomez, who's coming to sing at the show.
Wonderful. Well, it's lovely to hear you sing again, you know. Your public performance has taken a little bit of a back seat in recent years to your writing and composing. So does it feel good to be on stage again?
I don't know. I won't be able to tell you till I get there. But it's a little bit nerve-wracking. You're right, I haven't been doing a lot of live work lately, but I think that, as always, I've always been a reluctant performer. It's just that the music carries me, and I feel so strongly about the music that the performance part of it is an occupational hazard that I have to get over in order to get the music out. So I think that hasn't changed.
Yeah. And of course, you've just released another album with your longtime singing partner, Anita Best, under your Amber Music label. How did that come about?
It wasn't really an album as such, an EP. It's I think it's 6 songs or something. But Anita asked me to produce she was doing a storytelling album for the National Storytellers Association, and 1 CD of stories and 1 CD of songs. And so we were in the studio together, and I heard these a cappella songs, and I thought, my God, I'd really like to accompany 1 or 2 of those. And then we had a few that we had started recording. So we just decided to, while we were together in the studio, to finish them. And so we put together a little package and called it Amber Encore, and that's available on my website.
Well, of course, you and Anita have produced some incredible traditional music over the years, a real reflection of the older music of this place and of our ancestors. How important has that been?
It's hard to overstate that, because that has, when I'm reflecting on things and I started thinking about why I was doing the White Fleet Suite, like the fishermen and the people I learned songs from over the years taught me a lot more than just songs. And it's a part of who I am. I learned so much about life, about philosophy, about the old ways, not just the old ways, but eternal ways that sometimes get pushed to the background with the rush for technology and society and all that. But I learned a lot, and I owe a huge debt of gratitude to the older Newfoundlanders that I had the privilege of learning from. So it's important for me to try to prevent their songs from being drowned out,
And of course, before that, and you were doing the same thing with Figgy Duff, right, the province's premier Celtic rock band and trailblazer of traditional music and inspiration for many of the groups that followed. How many people have I spoken to, bands who said, the inspiration was Figgy Duff. We're doing what we do because of what Figgy Duff did. You were pretty young when you became the lead singer of Figgy Duff.
Yes, I was.
How did that come about, and what attracted you to that unique group of musicians and the trail that they were blazing?
Well, it's funny because we were kind of on parallel paths before we met. My mother was a piano teacher, and in high school I had gotten the Peacock books out of the library, and I was looking through them I knew there was more folk songs besides just She's Like the Swallow. And I was finding them, and I had an interest. Then I was involved in a play that Noel saw in Grand Falls, and he sought me out. I didn't know Figgy Duff from Adam. Well, they were Lukey's boat at the time. But then when I later came to St. John's, he sought me out again. And then when he brought me to a rehearsal and introduced me to some of the material, I thought, oh yeah, well, this is kind of what I'm interested in. So that's how it started.
Amazing. And this might sound like a contradiction in terms, but I think Figgy Duff was ahead of its time when it came to its keen interest in music of the past.
Yeah, that's true. I think it's true. Well, I think too that part of the reason for that was that Lukey's boat went to England. They won a trip to England from some sort of Battle of the Bands thing in Montreal, and it was there that Noel discovered Fairport Convention and the pioneering folk rock outfits, Jethro Tull and all those bands that were in England. And he realized that we had our own living source of that material, that we didn't have to get them out of books or anything, that people in Newfoundland were still singing that music. So that's why he started Figgy Duff.
Yeah. I have a vivid memory of watching Figgy Duff perform at the New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Music Festival a few decades ago, and I was there to produce a feature on your band and your influence beyond our shores. You were doing songs like Woman of Labrador and the traditional song The Ten Commandments, and you were singing on a stage called The Spirit of Louisiana.
That's right.
But it was the spirit of Newfoundland and Labrador that was shining through, you know? What did you want audiences like that to take away from your concerts?
Well, I think one of the reasons we were at the Spirit of Louisiana stage was because we had Emile with us,
That's
Emile
right.
Benoit. But do you also remember that B.B. King was on the stage next to us?
That's right. And Whitney Houston's mother was down a few tenths down.
And we didn't really have a prayer to get audience like with that kind of competition. But the whole experience was, you know, I mean, you remember like on Bourbon Street and Emile with the rappers and all that kind of stuff.
I know, an incredible moment. There was these rappers and these dancers, and they were doing their thing. And Emile, of course, never went anywhere without the fiddle.
That's right.
And Noel had the boron.
Yeah.
And so the next thing, Emile starts to play to the beat of these rappers. And then, you know, Noel starts to play the boron. And I will never forget, and well, we have it on tape, the looks on the faces of those young black dancers. And they just were like looking, and they were so amazed. And what a moment of spiritual influence, of musical influences coming together. And
it was incredible.
It was just amazing.
I think the best moments happened off stage at that festival.
Well, they really did. And one of my favorite songs, though, by Figgy Duff, maybe my favorite, is Weather Out the Storm. You know, the haunting melody and the imagery that's so much of this place, the storms that we've weathered, and yet the spirit and culture remain so strong. And so let's have a listen, and then I'm going to get your take on it.
Okay.
Sometimes it feels like freedom. Sometimes it feels like pain. From the sea of love and heartbreak, the tide rolls in again. I'm running out to meet it, but you just run away. Don't have to hide away your pain. I'll help you weather out the storm. There's shades of color in the rain. I'll help you weather out the storm. Sometimes it feels like evil. Sometimes it feels like rain. For some a dream of passion, for others just a game. But if it once has touched you, you know you'll never be the same. Don't have to hide away your pain. I'll help you weather out the storm. There's shades of color in the rain. I'll help you weather out the storm. A phantom ship adrift without a port of call. Can't watch you fall apart between the devil and the deep blue sea. Open up your heart. There was hysteric laughter. I heard you crying after. Outside of your disaster, the rain was falling faster. So tell me so bad you'd let it pass you by. Don't have to hide away your pain. I'll help you weather out the storm. There's shades of color in the rain. I'll help you weather out the storm. Don't have to hide away your pain. I'll help you weather out the storm. There's shades of color in the rain. I'll help you weather out the storm.
And that, of course, was Weather Out the Storm, the unmistakable sound of Figgy Duff and its lead singer, Pamela Morgan, who is my guest today on Going Strong. Pamela, you wrote that song with Noel Dinn, co-founder of Figgy Duff, an extraordinary drummer.
Yeah.
You know, what comes to your mind when you listen to Weather Out the Storm?
Oh, my goodness, it's hard to really say. Lots of things. I remember the studio where, like, you know, that one was kind of created in studio. We were doing that album, and the producers were trying to push us towards radio, something that could be played on the radio, and so we were trying to find it, and so it kind of evolved in the studio, sort of, and we were, you know. So I think about the studio in those times. I think about the video, because there's a lot of people in the video who are no longer with us. Mm-hmm. So there's that, like, that has a real nostalgic thing for the past. And I also think about the message, which is, you know, like, to help people through their various storms, because we all have a lot of storms in our lives. So there's all those things combined, really. But one other thing too, which is really happy news for me, is that a young musician has just covered it. I can't believe it. They would actually choose that one to cover. Yeah, Evelyn Jess. Yes. Yeah, so that makes me really happy.
Yeah, the longevity is there.
Yeah, that's great.
And the impact.
Yeah.
You know, it's easy to see Figgy Duff's significance from the perspective of time, you know, looking back. But did you have a sense during the band's heyday about just how influential it was, what you were doing was? And has your view changed over time? I mean...
Oh, boy. Yes, my view has changed over time. When we were in it, there wasn't really a lot of time to think about it in the larger picture, because we were so intense and so focused and so, you know, disorganized and on the road. And we basically spent about 20 years on the road.
Yes.
You know, we didn't have much in the way of organization or management or money or anything like that. So it was a very frenetic kind of time. So even though we did know that something was happening, but you don't know what it is.
That's right. And as you say, you were so busy doing it that there wasn't a lot of time for reflection on the impact.
Yeah.
You know?
But in retrospect, you know, I'm happy that we did, you know, make an impact in terms of switching the perception of Newfoundland culture into a different direction. I mean, we were part of a movement, a big movement. We were a musical part of a great movement of cultural practitioners in Newfoundland at the time. I mean, there was Codco, and there was, like, the writers, and everybody was trying to shift our image away from the stupid Newfie to people who had a beautiful, rich culture and deserving of respect. And I think that we helped in that. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. It was part of a real renaissance.
Yes, it was. That was the word I was looking for.
Do you know? It really was. And so many people have tried to sum up the significance of Figgy Duff in the province's musical culture. Is there any way you can sum it up in like a sentence or a couple of words? What comes to your mind if you're asked, like, what is the legacy of Figgy Duff?
Oh, my goodness, Deborah, that's a hard question. I don't know. I just... I'm glad that we were able to help bring the older people's songs forward to a new generation. That makes me happy. I'm glad that we got some of Noel's writing out into the world, because he was an incredible writer, poet, visionary. I'm glad we helped other people be inspired to, you know, follow in the same path. So I guess that's not one sentence, but
No,
that's all I can think of.
beautifully
Really.
said. And I mean, just to pick up on that, what advice would you or do you give to younger musicians just starting in the business?
Well, I am the very worst person in the world to ask about business because I am the world's worst business person. And I have never been able to get the hang of it. But I think that truth is the most important thing. Being true to yourself and your vision. Don't stray too far like we did with Weather Out the Storm. I say that we were pushed in a different direction, but we still kept our own integrity. We never, ever sold out. But that would be the most important thing. Just, the only way I can see having any kind of satisfaction is to be able to live with myself. I wouldn't be able to if I had done something that just so that people would like me or that I would make more money. I never ever did that. And so I sleep well at night. So that would just be my advice. But of course, somebody else might say something totally different. I mean, not very many people would live with my bank account.
But there are more important things. There are different kind of riches.
Totally.
That's right.
100%. Yeah.
And of course, your musical path has flourished and diversified since the Figgy Duff years. You've added considerably to your body of work and still adding. What keeps you going strong?
The music. It's just the music. I don't listen to music. I listen to the music in my head. When I'm walking around, I listen to, it might sound corny, but I just listen to what comes in my head. I love the wind, I love the sound of the water, I love all the sounds that are around. And that's what keeps me going is music. There's no other reason to do it.
And that's what inspires you, your actual surroundings here in this place?
Well, this place, but also what comes in my head. I mean, my mother, as I mentioned, was a piano teacher, and I grew up with classical music, and I still hear that in my head. I know these pieces note for note because students used to come into the house and they'd be playing them, and my older sisters played, and so I know all these classical pieces. So I listen to them in my head. I don't seek out music to listen to. I rarely listen to albums or anything, but like what I hear in my surroundings, that's what I listen to. And it comes out as music, and so that's why I keep going.
Well, I would encourage everybody who's listening here to check out your most recent piece of music, the White Fleet Suite, at the Arts and Culture Center on the 3rd and 4th of November. Check it out. Beautiful. You won't be disappointed. And I thank you for being here.
My goodness, Deborah, thank you for getting me in for the White Fleet Suite. And I'm delighted that you're back in the media again. It's wonderful to see you.
It's so good to be here and so good to see you. And thanks for personifying what it means to be going strong.
Thanks, Deborah.
And that is our show for this week. My name is Deborah Collins. Join me again next Tuesday at 7:30 for Going Strong right here on VOWR.